work really hard at creating a culture of horizontal collaboration. This began with the idea of our knowledge sets and of pushing back at the status quo of academic knowledge being more valued than everyday knowledge within the community. It also touches on balancing issues around gender, around race, around white privilege, and the opportunities and the access that sometimes gives me that other members of the 1955 team don't have. The other issue that it brings is around money and economics and the role that plays in our society of how we are valued as individuals based on the money we have or don't have. And this is something that we've faced with our COVID initiative in Cliptown. We came up with the idea that we needed to do this initiative, but immediately we're faced with how are we going to pay for this? And one of the things that was really critically important is how the members of our crew could rely on having a stipend continuously that they knew they would receive regularly and could count on, so that they had that emotional and economic stability. We started 1955 as a social enterprise. This means making a nonprofit company that is socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable. This means moving away from the model of relying on funds from outside sources, like the way an NGO works. But suddenly, with the initiative for COVID, we were faced with how do we pay for what it is we see that needs to be done. None of us wanted to ask for donations for what felt to us like a handout. One of the core principles of 1955 is this fierce desire that it be an organization that is deeply rooted in Cliptown, it's about Cliptown, it's from Cliptown, and it's generated by Cliptown. And this means economically as well. And so it's always been part of our discussion of how do we do this? What can we create that comes out of Cliptown that not only addresses the projects we want to work on, but that generates the income we need to do that. So in telling you about the economics of our COVID initiative, there are basically 3 phases that we've been through. The first was the startup and treating it like a pilot project and identifying the need and identifying what the resources are that we have and how we're going to share them. And we define those resources as time, as skills, as different knowledge sets, as different access to infrastructure, to physical work on the ground. And we all contributed in the ways in which we were capable. We piloted this project with our own resources. And that was really difficult at times, but it was also really empowering. And it's taught us that we can come up with an idea and we can just start working on it. And for this project, that included developing and initiating the strategies, designing and developing the PPEs, or personal protective equipment, to keep our crew safe, and identifying the most vulnerable people in the community. As well, it was sourcing and getting supplies during lockdown and how to navigate that. The core 1955 crew, which is Tavang, Ginger, Robert, and Kristen, all contributed the resources they had, whether it was their network of friends, whether it was the knowledge of the community, whether it was Wi-Fi time, whether it was money. It was all pooled, and it's really important to acknowledge that it was all done within a context of friendships and relationships that stretch back for years and years, that we've collaborated and built a sense of trust and of knowing each other and relying on each other. None of us have huge salaries. Ginger is a resident artist at the Bacomo Gallery in Walter Sisulu Square in Kliptown. Tabang hangs artworks in galleries and museums across Johannesburg and Pretoria. Robert is a tour guide and community activist. Kristen is an adjunct faculty member at Athabasca University in the School of Architecture. But we pool these resources and we share them. Since the end of February, we've each taken home an equal stipend every 2 weeks. And the rest of our monies are put into a fund that pays for supplies and airtime and paying the people who have joined our crew to assist with the spraying and sanitizing of the toilets and the distribution of the tissue and soap for hand washing. But soon we faced the reality that there was so much need, and how were we going to sustain this? And so we had to make difficult decisions about not expanding the project beyond what we knew we could support. We had to honor the commitments we made to the grannies, to the vulnerable people in the community, that we could continue doing this over the long term. But even this meant more funds than really what we had. And so this became the point that we knew our project was effective and would contribute to the slowing of the spread of the virus in Kliptown, but we needed to sustain it over the long haul. We started the project thinking this would be a month or two, and we've now been doing it for 6 months. And so the second phase became how to maintain this. And it was at this point that we turned to fundraising. We set up a website that included what we did, what the project was about, how we did it. We created a fundraising platform that allowed people to donate at different levels. We established an Instagram site to allow people to follow what we were doing. We wanted people to be able to contextualize the COVID initiative in Kliptown within the larger context of 1955 as a company with a totally different set of goals and ideals. And we wanted to distance ourselves from the stereotype of an African project that needs help from the West. So to do this, we set out with the idea of creating across all of our platforms a sense of collaboration versus donation. And the reality is, we got very little money. So we got feedback and we reevaluated and we compromised to the point that we felt comfortable with. we added a donate button to our website, which we'd been avoiding. We became more overt in asking people for money, in simply stating that we needed the money to keep the project going. And money trickled in. And it was exciting as we realized we could pay our bills at the end of each month. But it was also heart-wrenching that we couldn't grow the project in the way we envisioned and in the way the community needed. It also reinforced to us that our original idea of 1955 as a social enterprise that makes its own way was the direction that we wanted to go. And so this began phase 3. And phase 3 was, how can 1955 earn the money that it needs to keep this project going? We came up with the idea of sanitizing facilities, and we put in quotes. Those weren't successful. We looked for and wrote proposals for grants and have had some success with that. But most exciting, last week we had our first paid job as 1955. We created 5 short films and a panel discussion between Cliptown residents and students via Zoom. The students are in programs at TU Berlin in Germany and Wits University School of Architecture and Planning in Johannesburg. This proved so empowering. It was creative. We negotiated our copyright. We worked out IT difficulties of how to broadcast from Cliptown. This was how we wanted to move forward. We wanted to earn our way. But the reality is, we've come to realize we need all of these. We need multiple streams of monies coming in, whether they be from ourselves, from the fundraising, or from what we produce and market and sell.